What's up, y'all? I am giving you, I don't know, boating realness, perhaps. I'm on this ferry on my way to do some house hunting. So you catch me in a rare state. I'm out and dressed. So here's the deal. I wasn't going to do this video because I'm tired of talking to white people. But the opportunities and reflections that come up so often, in part because of my proximity to whiteness, being here in this very colonized country of Aotearoa, New Zealand, makes, ideas and things come up. So anyway, I'm going to tell you the reflection that I have for white folks today. Things that, if you want to get right, things that you need to think about, and the only reason I know these things is because they impact me, and so consequently I see them and I'm like, oh, there's another way in which whiteness is harmful, and that I know white people aren't thinking about. And I be clear, most of these messages that I'm giving, I'm not talking to white people. I'm not talking to Trump, and I'm talking to Trump supporters, and I'm not talking to white people who white people need to be talking to. Those are your responsibilities to go fix your hateful uncles and cousins, aunties, your whiteness as active violence, like your deeply entrenched kinfolk. That's your job to go get them. I'm not doing that. But I do have words for you who say that you care about ending inequity and marginalization, and that you care about divesting from white supremacy. Here's a word for you today. Your instinct, white person who's listening to this, is to protect whiteness. All the time. It happens all the time. And you won't even see it operating because it is so insidious and so deeply ingrained in your everyday way of being. So let me share with you some of the ways in which white people protect whiteness. White people protect whiteness by assuming that white people's intentions are good. Let me say that again. White people protect whiteness by assuming white people's intentions are good. All the people, that's how you got Trump in office the first time. It's because people were like, oh, he doesn't really mean it. He's not really that bad. Even if it wasn't about Trump, it was about you saying, oh, that can't happen. We're not really like that. That's not who the country is. He would never win. That is protecting whiteness. Whiteness thinks highly of itself. It doesn't see its own violences as violences. It does not understand itself as a tool of violence. And so white people give whiteness a pass all the time. All the time. I'm going to give you an example really quickly. I was in a car with a white person, and somebody drove by in a replica of the Dukes of Hazzard General Lee car. I'm in New Zealand. Dukes of Hazzard was a U.S. show about the Deep South and an unrepentant allegiance to the Confederacy. And I got into a debate with this person about whether or not the person driving this car understood the implications of the big ass Confederate flag on the top of his car. And they were like, no, they don't know that that's racist. And I call bullshit. Absolutely. Absolutely not. They do know. They know. And so again, in the space of the way whiteness protects whiteness, it does two things. One, it implies innocence, right? There's an innocence. And so because there's inherent innocence, there's a lack of accountability. You can't hold a thing accountable that you won't find guilty, right? So, oh no, he couldn't know. And then the second way that whiteness protects itself is by feigning ignorance as excuse, right? Because here is my presumption, is if you go so far If you're so deep into some shit that you would paint a Confederate flag on the top of your car and you don't know what the Confederate flag means, fuck you for your absolute willingness to appropriate images and symbols without any information about how that might be impacting in the world and what that means. Which also means that whiteness is allowed to just take things. Again, to take things. Like, these are white people in New Zealand taking images, iconography from the US, and then using them unrepentantly. And so the assumption of innocence, the assumption of ignorance as excuse, and the assumption of not that bad or everybody else, derailing conversations to say, well, what about those people? Well, what should we do? I got this on a post the other day. Somebody was like, well, I understand, yes, white people absolutely need to do better, but what should we do about China? Nigga, why are you worried about China? There's a whole world of white supremacy to undo, and you are on my thread asking me about China? That is how whiteness protects itself, by being concerned and interested in everything else other than itself. Because it has to sit with itself. Like I said, its inability to sit with its own violences keeps it from actually looking at itself and holding itself accountable. So you need to look, white person, if you're listening to this, white person who wants to be an ally, you need to be looking every single day for the way in which you are protecting whiteness. In what ways are you protecting whiteness? Because protecting whiteness is protecting a white supremacist ideology that leaves the institutions and structures built on white supremacist ideologies firmly intact globally. So be looking for where you're protecting whiteness and stop.